Good evening, Canada. We are back with a new episode of Voice of Canada. Your host, Asphandiar Wadiwalla. Our charming female co host is Patricia. And today we have a very dynamic and a learned person from the film industry of India. He is none other than Mazahir Rahim. He is currently settled here in Canada, but he is a very busy person, and we are glad that today he came to our show to talk all about his experience from India as well as his current endeavors over here in Canada. Welcome to our show.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to Voice of Canada.
You're Mr. Mazahir Rahim.
I am Mazahir Rahim.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm your female co-host, Patricia Polak, this evening for Voice of Canada, with our host, Asphandiar Wadiwalla. We welcome to our show, Mr. Mazahir Rahim.
Mazahir Rahim.
Please inform our viewers your strong desire at the age of 12 to become a journalist of 2 newspapers in Pune, India.
There was no strong desire. It just happened. It just happened as I've told. As things going back in memory, it was 1962, if I'm not mistaken. I was 13 years old, and I was in the 6th standard in school. And one day, I was sitting. I had because of my height, I always used to be on the front bench, and I had a benchmate called Bajaj.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, Bajaj wrote a sonnet. It was called Rain.
Mm-hmm.
So he showed it to the class teacher, Mr. Coelho. Mr. Coelho liked it very much, and he pinned it on a notice board which was right above our heads. Now, from morning till evening, Bajaj kept, hitting me and said, "See my poem, see my poem, see my poem."
Mm-hmm.
It irritated me like mad.
Hell, yeah.
So I went back home after school that day, took out my father's typewriter, set the ribbon to red, and I wrote "Rain, rain, rain," and I typed out a sonnet. And I was very happy. I showed it to Mr. Coelho next day. In the evening that day, one of our nephews who used to stay with, one of my cousins who used to stay with us, he came back from work, and I showed it to him. I said, "Abuli bhai, look, this happened, and this is the poem I've written." He read it and he said, "Give me 5 minutes." So he went, had a wash, came out and said, "Come with me." So he had a lambi. He got on the lambi. He took me to the office of the Pune Herald, a
newspaper,
daily newspaper, which I started about a year back.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the people working there because they used to fill gas from our petrol pump, which was in Pune. So I knew them. So he saw me. He said, "Oh, Mazahir, you are here. How are you? What's happening?" And Abuli said, "Forget all that. See what he has written." So Mr. David, who was the editor, he read it and said, "Very good, excellent. I'm going to keep this with me." And then he said that, "Look, Mazahir, we are looking for somebody who can write a weekly children's column for us every Sunday.
Very nice.
Would you like to take on the job?" I said, "Sure." And I didn't ask him what I have to do, nothing. He just said, "Will you take it on?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "Fine, I'll give you 5 rupees every week for that." Now, 5 rupees in 1962 was a very big amount.
Big amount, yeah.
So for me, it was, great. So that Sunday, Mr. David printed my poem, "Rain, Rain, Rain," on the front page of the newspaper in red ink.
Wow.
As I had printed
that
it.
That was a big honor.
Yes, so I took that paper, showed it to Mr. Coelho, and he pinned it on the notice board, and that started me off as a journalist.
Yes. So, Mr. Mazahir Rahim, from your bio, we see that you took a 3 years program at the Institute of Film and Direction.
Yes.
So, throw the light on that. What did you do and what did you learn?
Well, again, very interesting event happened which led me into filmmaking. Because of my journalism, I used to meet a lot of film stars and film people. And other than that, Mr. Yusuf Khan, who's to be known as Dilip Kumar, was a close family friend of ours. And along with him, a lot of people like Homi Wadia, Rinder Singh Bedi, Aga Saab, David Saab, used to come to our home. So I knew a lot of people in the industry. One day, I was waiting at the Raj Bhavan in Bombay, waiting to interview Mrs. Indira Gandhi,
Wow.
who was the PM of India at that time. And with me on the same room in the lounge was waiting Mr. Khwaja Ahmad Abbas, Mr. K. A. Abbas, who was a very famous writer, journalist, filmmaker, very famous. So we got to chatting, and we realized that we were representing two different newspapers who were mortal enemies of one another. Current and Blitz. I was working for Current, he was
And the
working for
Blitz,
Blitz.
yeah.
And their offices were
Quite nearby.
No, absolutely opposite one another.
Oh, wow.
In the same corridor. One door led to Blitz, one door led to Current.
Current.
And the two editors, Karanje and Karaka, were great friends, but their magazines were mortal enemies. So Khwaja Ahmad Abbas, joked about it that Current and Blitz meet Indira Gandhi together. And that's what happened. Mrs. Gandhi was running late, so we were told that you come and meet her together. So we went together. He asked his questions, I asked mine, and we finished off. But Khwaja Ahmad Abbas kind of started taking an interest in me and made me became like a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him that give me a role in your film. He was just doing Saath Hindustani at that time with Jalal Agha and Amitabh Bachchan and Anwar Khan and a lot of other people. So he said, no, acting is not for you. You're a writer, join the Film and Television Institute of India. And he got me the form, showed me how to go about it. I appeared for the written examination, and I passed that examination.
And you completed your 3-year program.
No, I came time for the interview.
Uh-huh.
So when I went for the interview, there were about 100 of us, and 10 would be selected from there. So when I went for the interview and I walked in and I saw Khwaja Ahmad Abbas on the table. One of the 4 jurors, one of the 4 people who would select, the student. And Abbas Sahab got up and walked around the table, and he came and gave me a hug and said, Rahim Sahab, जर्नलिज्म में तो आपने हमें मात दे ही दिया है, अब क्या फिल्मों में भी मात देंगे? आइए आइए. And he introduced me and said he's a close friend of mine and a brilliant filmmaker, Mr. Mazahir Rahim, and he went and sat on this table. After that, nobody asked me anything, and I passed. I passed, and I became a student at the Film and Television Institute of India.
Very good.
So from
that
journalism,
was in Pune. The institute is in Pune. Yeah.
From journalism, then I shifted to filmmaking. But even other than that, I had dabbled in filmmaking from a very young age. I think it was from 1964 when my parents purchased a set of Bolex cameras, 8mm cameras, projector editing machine, and gifted it to me. So from that age, I was about 14 or 15, I started making films in 8mm, and I made a lot of films, birthday films, documentaries, films on people's lives, and so that I was already very familiar with the art of filmmaking, and that the Film Institute just polished it, gave it a polish, made me, removed the negativities which I had and taught me the right way of going ahead.
Right, thank you. Go ahead.
Oh. So after you graduated from the Film Institute of India, how did you get a break to go into the Bollywood film industry?
As I mentioned earlier, I was already familiar with a lot of people in the industry, in the film industry. So,
as a journalist, due to your journalism,
due to my journalism, and so when I went to the Film Institute, when I went to Bollywood, it was not the first time. I had already been in Bollywood because I had interviewed nearly all the stars which were working at that time. They knew me, I knew them. Now I had to find the right director. So at that time, I had some close friends of mine like Shatrughan Sinha and other people. They guided me. So I worked with a lot of stalwarts. I worked with Yash Chopra, I worked with Manmohan Desai.
Wow.
I worked with
those are the big names.
Keval Mishra, a lot of people, Vishwamitra. Then my batchmate from the Film Institute, Shabana Azmi, she called me one day and she introduced me to her neighbor, Vishwamitra Radil, who was making his first feature film called Inspector Eagle, based on a radio play he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined him as his associate director. We made that film Inspector Eagle, with starred Sanjeev Kumar and Neelam Mehra, and that process of filmmaking of in the Bollywood started.
Thank you.
You started your career in 1970.
1970, I joined the Film Institute.
Film Institute. Okay.
1973, I passed
So you
out
passed
and I
it.
started working
And
in the
when
industry.
was your first debut as a director?
My first debut was in 1974 when I made a documentary called Operation 100.
Uh-huh.
So that was on the police force.
And the police force.
Yes.
Okay.
And then immediately after that, I got a chance to make another documentary again on the police, women police in India. So it started in 74.
So when did you actually directed an Indian commercial movie?
I have never directed an Indian commercial film. I've never directed.
Okay.
I've directed 5 feature films. But they were all for non-commercial organizations like Film Division, NFDC.
The NGOs.
And no, we didn't have NGOs in those days. But like Children Film Society of India, I made a film for them called Ladli, the feature film. I made 3 feature films for Films Division of India. Agar Aap Chahe, which won the Best Fiction Film of the year 1992. Then I made Nawab Bhutta, I made Chakravyuh. So I made 5 feature films there, but I've never made a commercial film, a Hindi commercial film. I've been involved there as associate director, as a line producer, as executive producer, but I've not directed a Hindi commercial film.
Commercial film. Go ahead.
So from your bio, we read that at the tender age of 10, your beloved mother gifted you a Kodak camera, and you developed your interest in photography that started processing and printing your photographs.
Yes.
At a nearby studio. Can you tell us your interest in photography?
I don't know. It just happened, and I found that I was good at it. So I've continued doing that,
And did your family connected to the Indian film industry?
No, my family directly was not connected with the Indian film industry, but my mother was a very close friend of Mr. Dilip Kumar, because they used to stay in adjacent homes in Bombay. Yusuf Khan.
Okay.
They used to stay in adjacent homes in Nagdevi Street, and so they came up. They were, as children, they were together. So even after her marriage, Dilip Saab kept in touch with her, and he used to keep coming to our house.
Right. Ms. Mazahir Rahim, you are basically a boy from Pune.
I am a boy from Pune.
And tell us your journey from Pune to Bombay.
My journey from Pune to Bombay is very, very, very normal, because Pune, Bombay are so close, that
it's a ghat.
It's just 3 hours distance.
But it's due to climbing, it takes longer.
Yeah. So I have been, half my life from my childhood has been spent in Bombay, because all my relatives, all my cousins were in Bombay. So Pune to Bombay, Bombay to Pune, Pune to Bombay.
Did you take a break at in between the famous station?
Of course.
Lonavala and
Karjat, Neral, Matheran.
These are the beautiful places.
Yes.
Luckily, I visited those.
They are very beautiful.
Very beautiful places.
Correct.
Achha, go ahead.
Okay, so at an early age, once again, you sat at a typewriter with your dad and you wrote the sonnet, which you spoke about earlier? Or
yes.
The 14 lines one, right?
Yes.
And the poem in Pune Herald, a newly daily newspaper, and the editor decided to publish your sonnet in newspaper. And you had a breakthrough moment there?
When I sat on the typewriter and I typed rain, 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 nowhere in my life had I ever written anything before, or ever dreamt that this was
going to be a career for you.
For me. Because my father owned a gas station, so I thought I was the only child, and I thought, okay, that is what I would do, But much to my surprise and much to my father's surprise and anger, it didn't work out that way. And that poem, writing that poem, changed my entire life. It changed my entire life.
So tell then which year you landed here in Canada and what you have contributed towards here in Canada as far as filmmaking.
I came to Canada in 2006 and I became a PR in 2008. And in the earlier years, Aspi, I could not find my feet. I could not find my
Because
feet.
still is too infant.
Yeah, I didn't
in
know.
Canada.
I didn't know what to do, what not to do. So I used to get offers in Bombay, and I used to run away for 4-5 months to Bombay, complete film, then come back. Then again spend 2-3 months here, wondering what to do, and again I used to go back. And then in 2015, that late, uh, one day I was sent to a counselor uh, through Canada Services,
Yeah.
immigration services. And that counselor was like an angel for me.
Right.
Her name was Rashmi Bakshi, and her name is Rashmi Bakshi. And she saw my resume, she saw my work, and she said, "What nonsense! Who's asking you to go to Walmart and do this survival job with this kind of
Bio.
this kind of
Experience.
resume, this kind of experience?" She said, "Forget it. I will write your resume." And she wrote my resume and she told me that where I was going wrong. And she told me a few steps to take. One of them was to go to some meetup groups,
Yes.
which were where filmmakers went. And I went. I took her advice and I went. And the first time I went there, I met some wonderful people whom I connected with,
yeah.
and I still work with them. I still work with them after 18, 14 years. And immediately I started making films. So the moment I started making films, I was back in my element. Because without that, it's like you're going in the desert and you have no water. So when you have water, you can do anything.
Because it was an organic network.
It was an organic. So that is, Rashmi Bakshi pointed me in the right direction. I call her my angel. And
she was connected to Canadian institution or some
Canadian institution.
Canadian institution because it's a Hindu Indian name.
Yeah, she's an Indian. She's a Indian Canadian, and all immigrants go through this counselor. Counselors come and go and help you. So the other counselors, I think, did not know what to do with me. But she caught on.
She caught on to where to send you to the right people.
Yes.
Did you ever meet the Toronto legendary Deepa Mehta?
I have met her. I have met her in Bombay and here. In fact, as a journalist, I interviewed her. I interviewed Deepa Mehta when she made Fire, because again Shabana Azmi is a friend of mine. So Shabana put me in touch with Deepa. We met and we interviewed her for Fire as a journalist. And then I became a filmmaker. So when I came here, I met her husband and her producer, Roger Hamilton. And we have met a couple of times after that.
But do you know the story of Fire? The author was Bapsi Sidhwa.
Yes.
The famous Parsi writer and a college professor.
Yes.
So she was the person who...
Yes.
She adopted a novel and she converted it into film.
Yes.
And earlier she had even done 2 more novels of Bapsi Sidhwa.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that was a celebrated, and Bapsi Sidhwa happened to be our family friends.
Oh, good.
So that's how I connect to Deepa Mehta.
Oh, okay.
What do you see the prospects of making films here in Canada? Especially our South Asian culture films.
I think more and more South Asians are coming into the field and they're very talented, they're very good, and they're making a mark for themselves.
They're doing well.
They're doing very well.
We'll be taking a short break and we'll be back with you soon. Back to a weekly episode of Voice of Canada, produced by Avaz TV Entertainment. I'm your host, Asphandiar Wadiwalla, my co-host, Patricia Polak, and our guest is a very talented filmmaking. He's Mazahir Rahim.
Hello.
So, Mr. Mazahir, give us more account of your current assignments over here in Canada. What you are currently doing?
Currently, sir, making something very interesting. 4 years back, I started making a series on the life of a very famous Canadian called Tariq Fateh. And we made a 8-episode series on him called The Oldest and the Boldest, or in Hindi it is called Tariq Fateh Ko Gussa Kyun Aata Hai. So that became very popular, that it caught on. So I realized that there is a reason, there is a vacuum here where people do a lot of work, and they are very well known. They have incredibly talented people, but after they go away, there is nothing left. There is nothing left except memories. So we have started this concern. We means my partners are Cindy Ohm, Simran Kaur, and me, and Oscar Pentinen. The four of us have started this company called Legacy Eternal. In Legacy Eternal, we are making films on the lives of people.
Very good.
So that they can communicate directly their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions on cinema, on film, and that will remain till eternity. So anybody it's like a good book. You go to a library, you say, I want to see what this person has written. You can take the book. Here is the film. You can take the film and see what the relevance of that person was even 100 years from now, 500 years from now. So we made a film on Tariq Fateh. We made we are making right now a film under Legacy Eternal on an actor who used to call himself Mr. Hollywood, Bill Sleno, who opted for made a medical assistant in death, and he passed away 2 months back. So we are completing the documentary on him. And we are now doing, there are a few other people who have approached us, so we are making films on their lives. Other than that, we are making 2 feature films. We are planning to make 2 feature films, and we are trying to get our finances together. One is a South Asian film on it deals with a female protagonist, and to show how a person, if she or he puts their mind together, Canada is always welcoming and always gives them ways to go ahead.
All the facilities are available.
All the facilities are available here, and how you can make use of those facilities, and showing the diaspora of the Indian diaspora in this film, and especially how people come here and how they adjust or don't adjust to society till something happens and they have to do it. The other film we are planning, and which is really about to start, is a film on racism here.
Wow, that is a very important thing.
A film on racism and a film on fanaticism in religion, and how fanaticism does not give anybody anything. No terrorist,
any ground here.
No terrorist, sir. No terrorist after killing people have ever changed anything in religion. It just made things worse and divided Canada. I always tell people of my race that if you want to come here and live here, become a Canadian.
Yeah. If you adjust to the system,
don't force people to become what you are. If you want to, if you love your earlier self so much, go back to your country. Go back to where you came from. You'll get everything you wanted there. If you've come here for a particular reason. Don't force your country onto the culture
and
of
your
Canada.
Culture and your thing. Yes. Because as you are aware, that Canada doesn't have any religion.
It does not have any religion. It's very impartial.
We are a secular country.
Very secular, really, in the name. I know that other countries also call themselves secular, but they are not secular. There is always a bias. Here there is no bias.
There is no bias, plus we are the biggest multicultural community over here in the whole world.
Yes, we are, and it is a shame when people of my community, people of my country or countries around me come here and try and make this country into their country.
You try to implement their type of...
If you didn't like this country, why did you come here?
And Canada never called anybody.
No, but and if you liked your country so much, why did you come here? Why didn't you go back?
So there are problems with certain third world countries,
Yes.
and we are facing, because we see from day to day that the people cannot adopt to the Canadian way of life, and that is causing a lot of hassles.
No, it is not they cannot. They don't want to.
They don't want to.
It is
Even
very
after
easy to
20
adjust to
years,
Canadian life.
even after 20 years,
Yeah, but they don't want
to remain the
They
same.
they won't learn the language. They will insist on ghettoing. They want to make a ghetto wherever they go, which is wrong. Which is wrong.
Or your documentaries.
Yes.
All the documentaries you have made over there, and you are planning to make over here further.
I have made I've made a lot of work. I've done a lot of work because today I have been working as a filmmaker for 58 years.
Wow.
58
it's a long
years
period of time.
I have been making films. So in those 58 years I have done a lot of work, and I enjoy it. It's my passion. I don't know any other job.
I don't know. Filmmaking.
Except for filmmaking, I don't know anything else. So yes, I have done a lot of work. I have worked. I have and I've done different things. Like I was trained in Czechoslovakia to make polychron film. Polychron film uses 3 cameras and 180 degrees of screen.
Wow.
And laser controlled projectors.
Beautiful.
So I spent 3 years there, and I've made 4 polychron films. The first one was Asiad 82. Then I made Amar Jawan, Hamara Kisan, Indira's Vision. So there was a special theatre made in Delhi for the polychron films.
So what is a polychron film? Will you explain to our viewers?
The polychron film gives you a 180 degrees view.
Okay.
180 degrees view. You shoot it using 3 computer-controlled
and it's a huge
cameras,
screen in the theater.
180 degrees.
Wow.
From this end to this end, and it's a round screen.
Wow.
So and it uses 3 projectors to project and 3 cameras to shoot every shot.
Mr. Mazahir Rahim, what made you decide to come to Canada as a permanent resident of Canada? As you were so successful in India, what made you or forced you to come to Canada?
Things were changing
Personal
culturally.
Circumstances?
No, things were changing culturally in India, which were not acceptable to me.
Conducive to you.
Conducive to me. I suddenly got an opportunity to come here and become a permanent resident. And the moment it came, I grabbed it. My second thought came after I became a PR. But like I told you, those 4, 5, 6 years, I struggled, and if Rashmi had not happened in my life, I might have gone back.
Gone back to India.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What are your future plans in Toronto? Do you plan to direct a Hindi film? As you have a huge
a full documentary film.
Yes.
Would you like to produce if somebody is ready to produce
Yes,
it?
I would love to do it. I would love to do it. In fact, right now we are making a documentary on medical assistance in death. And in fact, we're going to.
That is a very hot topic these
days.
Yes,
and we're going to Ottawa tomorrow, in fact, to shoot, interview some people there.
Lovely.
So we have done quite a bit of the shooting of that film, and it's going to be a long documentary. Other than that, as I told you, these other film projects that I have, looking for funding, looking for the right people to collaborate with.
But now you're with the right team, because just a few weeks ago, our mutual friend Cindy Om came to our show.
Really?
And she spoke very well about making of films and direction and this. And she's an actor also herself, plus a realtor. So she's a very, very multitasking lady.
She is. And I'm very fortunate that in this new projects of mine, she's an equal partner with me.
Very good. And she's very talented. I found out, because I also happen to know her and I know her talents very well.
She's very talented. Very talented.
Go ahead.
Mr. Rahim, as you understand the ethnic language of
Bora community.
Which is
Gujarati.
Do you have any plans to make a Gujarati film?
Or a documentary, because we have a huge Gujarati community here in Canada.
I have no plans to make a Gujarati
documentary
film or documentary, but I am I have been offered a beautiful role in a film, in a play, in a Gujarati play,
Wow.
which I am doing, and that play is called Joy Lahore Joyo Nathi Jio Nathi.
Okay.
A person who
not
has
seen
not seen
Lahore.
Lahore is not lived.
Oh.
So I'm doing a nice role in that play, and I'm very scared about it.
So that is a
because-
Pakistani enterprise?
No,
doing
it is not a Pakistani enterprise. It's a
South
it's Indian,
Asian?
mostly Gujarati.
South Asian, okay.
Mostly Gujarati, South
Because
Asian.
you can when you compare Lahore, you would immediately start comparing Delhi.
No.
On the same,
Yeah. But this is
the culture and everything's practically the
Yes.
same except the
There
religion.
is a very popular and very famous theatre group here, sir, which is called Savitri Theatre Group.
It's a Gujarati
And-
group.
No, it is not a Gujarati group.
Okay.
But a lot of Jasmine Sawant is one of the people who runs that. Sarajit Arora is there. He's a Sardar. So I think they're mixed people, and they do Marathi plays, they do Hindi plays, they do English. I don't know English, but now they're doing the Gujarati play. But Savitri does a lot of theatre here, and I have seen their performances, and they are very good.
Mm-hmm.
They are very good. So I think it's an honor uh, to be chosen to do a role,
Very
because
good.
I don't consider
But is
myself
it a
an
big,
actor.
lengthy role?
It's quite a big role, yeah.
And then the language is in Hindi.
Gujarati.
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 Wow. That will be another good breakthrough for all the language which you
Yes,
learned
yes.
and you have spoken well.
Yes, but unfortunately, the Gujarati Bhori speak is not the Gujarati speak.
Right.
So it's a little difference, a little difference.
Mr. Mazahir Rahim, it's a unique thing that your community, the Bora community, which is mostly they are populated in India, Pakistan, and now even in Canada also, they are not in film industry. How come you went into film industry being a Bori?
First of all, there are quite a few Boris in the film industry.
In the Indian
Yes.
Indian film industry?
Yes, there are quite a few
But we
Boris.
have not heard any popular names.
Very well, like the Burma Walas.
Acha, Burma Walas
They
are the
are
Boris.
Boris. They are
Okay,
Boris.
okay.
There's an actor also is a Bori who said Burma Wala. There are quite a few, but very few. Matlab,
It's a rare thing.
rare thing, yeah. How I became there? As I told you, I have never. I don't know.
Consider yourself as only a Bori.
I have never considered myself a Bori.
Acha, okay.
I have never considered myself a Muslim or a Bori, or I was an Indian first. I'm a Canadian now. So everything else is, like.
So do you mix around here at the Jamaat Khana with the Boris?
No, I don't really have the time for it. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is concerning the post-COVID-19 problems and issues we all facing. What is the state of the massive inflation, high gas prices,
Give your
the
opinions.
shortages, your opinion of
And
it
so
all?
many issues we are facing after COVID was over, the pandemic was over.
I suppose it is not just the COVID which was the. See, from COVID we would have recovered slowly. But then the Ukraine war happened. A lot of the money
Ukraine war
which
is very, 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 very new thing. But prior to
1 year now.
Pandemic,
See,
the pandemic got over in 22.
Pandemic got over in 22, and the Ukraine war started a few months later.
But at the same time,
and now
here, Israel has started that
So
war. has
all your
also
money
started.
is going to support bombing of Russia or bombing of Hamas. Where would our children and our long-term support and everything go? And what do? You don't. Would you not support?
No,
Ukraine?
the thing
Would
is
you
that
not support
the thing is
Israel?
that the bank
Human
interest
life.
rate has gone the highest.
Yes, because
It's
inflation.
5%.
Inflation
Inflation
did
is very
hit,
high.
Inflation did hit during COVID.
We
Because-
touch up to over 7%,
Yes.
but luckily last month they have
It's
announced it is 3.1.
3.1 is very good.
Very one,
And I suppose it will come down.
and our target is for 2%.
Yes, which is the right thing. But I think that there's certain things. I think the whole world is going through this. I think
Yeah, not only Canada, the world is
the
going
whole
through.
world is
Yeah.
going through the inflation thing. Is all because of, it started because of COVID, and after COVID, you required some recovery time, which did not happen.
It did not.
It did not happen.
Go ahead.
So due to the paucity of our time, we need to sign off for today's show. And we plan on inviting you again in 2024 to hear about all your exciting documentaries and
I'd
possible
love to be
films.
back, and I'd love to meet you again.
Would you
and
like to give any strong message for the viewers of Voice of Canada? Any strong commands of what as a Canadian we should do?
I again the same thing that I would request, I would beg people, if you want to live in Canada, live as a Canadian.
Very true.
That's
Peaceful.
it.
I would second that answer from you. Okay, whoever has come from any countries of the world, please be Canadians first,
Canadian
and
first.
then go after your other ethnic beliefs or
Everything
whatever
comes.
it is.
Your religion, your family, everything comes later
It's
on.
a secondary.
Secondary.
And don't try to impose your country rules over here in Canada and over Canadians.
Yes,
Otherwise, you won't be ever able to integrate into Canadian way of life.
absolutely, 100%. I agree.
So, with that note of Mr. Mazahir Rahim, which is a very strong note for many of the people who should learn some lesson from this, we will be signing off from our current episode of Voice of Canada. Your host Asphandiar Wadiwalla, our female co-host Patricia Polak, and our guest Mazahir Rahim. We thank you for coming to our show.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It was
So
fun.
everyone, have a good night. Goodbye. God bless. And God bless Canada. God save the King. Adios.